more pronounced.
Mhm.
How do roles like the golden child and scapegoat impact someone later in life?
Yeah, so, um, there's a golden child and then there's the scapegoat, and, uh, these are roles that are more subconsciously assigned to the child, but usually the golden child is someone who resembles their parents, whether that is personality wise, whether that is appearance wise. They are the achiever, they're the one getting the good grades, they're the star athlete, they make the parent look good. The scapegoat is usually the one who sometimes, like, you'll see like in a co-parent situation, if they resemble the other parent, the narcissistic parent will devalue that because they're reminding of their partner that left them, or you might hear that you look just like your father, you look just like their mother, and it's kind of like that backhanded, compliment. It's like, well, what about it?
Absolutely.
And I think for the golden child, they tend to, fall more susceptible of developing narcissism than the scapegoat. I think the scapegoat, there's a chance for them to really heal because the system's not benefiting them. The golden child, they're being told, not you're special, but you're more special than all of these other people, that you are better than all of these other people. And so if you're receiving that on a daily basis, like, of course you're gonna have this pompous attitude of, like, I don't have to wait in a line. Like, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? And so there's that, but also being the golden child can be very destabilizing because if that child does, have that temperament, which is, if people don't know, that's kind of the biological component baked into someone. If someone's temperament tends to be more relaxed, more empathic, it can also have them deal with a lot of shame and a lot of grief that, their parents didn't see them, that they were seen for what they could do, not, they're not being celebrated for their emotions, they're being celebrated for their achievements. And also that, like, their other siblings aren't getting the same treatment, right? And so it's like, well, why are you treating my other siblings so poorly, but you're treating me so, and it also creates this dynamic between this division, because division and people makes it easier to control them. And we see this in cults, we see this in leadership and politics. When you divide people, you're able to control them better because they're not um they you create a common enemy almost. For the scapegoat, they they're of I say dissociation, more dissociation you would see because they were getting the brunt of all of you're the problem of the family, you're the storage unit of shame for this family. And so they might struggle a little bit more with dissociation, with emotional dysregulation, having a negative self-image about themselves, that I am bad. Not that what they did to me is bad, but something about me is bad. And that's what we call toxic shame, belief that something fundamentally is wrong or broken about you, and have that disorganized attachment. Of people who have complex trauma, the vast majority of time they develop disorganized attachment, also known as fearful avoidance, because I call it as never knowing the hand that reaches out to you, if it's going to embrace you or if it's going to hit you. And that instability is very unsettling, especially for children. Children's brains crave structure. And so when they don't get that, their brain has to adapt to that. And so they develop this hot and cold avoidance of anxiousness to be close to the caregivers and really survive. And so I think the scapegoat might have a little bit more difficulties in relationships. I don't necessarily think because you're abused, you're more prone to entering abusive relationships, but you're more prone at getting stuck because you already have that trauma bonded experience. You already have, that structure set up in you. And so someone kind of just, picks it back up where the other person left off.
It's really hard to know. Like if your family is narcissistic as a child, right? Or growing up. And it's really hard to understand or believe that like could be true.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people on their healing journeys go through that moment, right? Where they start to see their family through a different lens and they're like, whoa, that's a really hard pill to swallow. So what does it really look like in the day to day, right? Like some examples of what people may be able to resonate with that would maybe insinuate that they might be in a narcissistic family, right? Just like something relatable, but also just adding on to that piece of like, there might be days where they are really nice and
Oh,
loving
yeah.
to you, right? And that's going to be confusing, but that doesn't make the harmful times any less harmful or destabilizing, right? So, what are some examples of just like day-to-day things that listeners can see if they maybe relate to?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of like the day to day would be more of the devaluation, the minimization. Say, like, you did something excellent, so you might get a pat on the back. Good job, Daisy. Or, but the other child might be, they flip a rock and it's like the best thing ever that's ever happened. And that's usually the golden child that happens. Others would be stonewalling, or the silent treatment is when you don't do something someone else wants. It's like, I don't know if you ever seen it, like a toddler, they just stop breathing and they just close their mouth really tight and they're just like,
Okay.
and they will literally pass out. And that is what the stonewall is. It's an adult tantrum and they're doing it. It's highly manipulative. A lot of people would just say, like, I wish they were, verbally like, this is worse than like the verbal abuse because it gets me all in my head, and it's a power play. It is a way to destabilize someone. And so I am going to stonewall you so you apologize for my bad behavior. Another thing would be, um a child sets a need, like, hey mom, I have could you let's listen to my let's say trumpet playing if you're in the band. And the parent would be like, well, don't you know I have to cook dinner at so and so, and that I've been working so hard all day and you're so ungrateful? Who do you think that I just have time to listen to you? Go ask your sister or someone to listen to you. I don't have time for that. That kind of
Yeah.
that dismissiveness. And there's a lot of you'll see, um let's say, the parent chooses. So, like, say a child might not really like swimming, but the parent puts them into swimming. They might want to do basketball, but the parent will be like, "Why would you want to play basketball? That's for like sissies. Like, you don't play basketball. You go do swimming. That's the more athletic, more important thing to do." And so they'll devalue your needs, your aspirations. That's a way to further control you. So the moment you start to self-individuate, which is usually around puberty, is when there's a lot more clash, because naturally teenagers want to self-individuate. It's healthy for them to self-individuate, but parents do not like that. The narcissistic parent does not, they want full control. And so when they see you self-individuating, they see that as a threat. And so they will put you back in your place. They will devalue, minimize you, gaslight you, because the more you self-individuate, the less control they have over you.
Mhm.
And the less able you're able to think for yourself. Because if I'm totally reliant on you, then you need me. Then you need me to do X, Y, and Z. So that's what you would really see. And the product of that would really be, isolation. They might isolate themselves from their peers. They might intake and risky behavior. I don't really like saying attention seeking. I think more of it's attachment seeking is what I say, because we are all looking for attachment. And so when I say to a kid, to a parent, I'm like, no, 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 like, your child is built for attention. That's a good thing. They want attention. When they are not getting that, that is when they run into problems, right? That is when they do that behavior. And I compare it to, as if you were starving and you see food on the side of the road, you're not going to stop and ask yourself, is this food good to eat? You're probably going to eat that because you're starving, right? You haven't ate, let's say, in 3 days. When you're starving for affection and love, you will get that anywhere you can find it. And so I think sometimes it makes them more susceptible to being groomed by people, predators outside of the family system. And of course, when they're, let's say, God forbid, the child is sexually abused, the parent will be like, that never happened. Well, what did you do to ask for it? And all that victim blaming tactics, like, don't this kid never come out? This will destroy your father's career. Like, I'm a teacher. I wouldn't be able to work with the children anymore. So it's never about, oh my gosh, who hurt you? I'm so sorry. You're safe here. It is, no, you are the problem. And you need to get back in line because I've worked too hard for you to screw up my life, that sort of speaking to the mother. The father is stonewalling, but they'll say, hey, Nick, go tell your mother dinner is ready at 5. So then the child will go and tell, hey, mom, dad told me that dinner will be ready at 5, or that he won't be coming to date night tonight. And so, or it might be, vice versa. Or for a child parent example, it would be like, why can't you be more like your sister? Your sister behaves so well. Your sister gets along with everyone. Why are you this Eeyore type child who is woe is me, poor me? Like, that's so like unattractive. Be more like your sister. Or they'll triangulate, let's say you go no contact. And they'll have the other siblings be like, "Hey, why aren't you talking to mom anymore? Mom's getting upset." That's why usually when you go no contact, it's usually you go no contact with everyone because unfortunately, with even one door open is letting everyone in, and that's why I don't think people understand. And so triangulation really becomes a tool of division. Because again, if you're divided, you're easier to control, you're easier to manipulate, and that gives me more power.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, personally, like I've seen situations like that where it's like, okay, the truth seeker, then, the scapegoat, the one truth seeker who turns into the scapegoat starts kind of uncovering things and speaking truth. And we call that also like the cycle breaker, right?
Mhm.
And if the narcissistic parent sees that, I've seen triangulation begin a lot through that time too of, hey, other siblings, like, look at what your sister's saying and doing. Look at what she's doing to me. Can you believe that? To try to get other members of the family to also disown this particular person. I think another good example I've seen is talking to a child about the parent and the horrible things that that parent is doing to that person are very personal things that kind of get the child to potentially view this other parent in a different light and view the narcissistic parent as like the savior role. Those are things I've seen as well. So yeah, I think that that's really interesting. And I think another really important topic and point that you brought up was, keeping one door open is sometimes too much. So oftentimes when people do go no contact, they have to cut off the entire family.
Mhm.
What have you seen in terms of like the backlash that happens when someone does kind of start seeing that the narcissistic abuse is happening and does start speaking up and does start withdrawing?
I think when the parent, like narcissistic people, they aren't, like I said, they aren't dumb. They're very socially perceptive. So when they know, it is game on. Like a narcissist they love having someone to hate even more they love being envied. Having someone to hate is what fuels them at the end of the day. Um, and so, but when they know, they will either do one of three of these things. They will either start with the love bombing and hoover you back in. Be like, "Oh no, sweetheart, I should have been better as a parent. I'm so sorry. You deserve better." And they'll future fake all these promises. And then, they will, like again, they're short sprinters, so they could have that change for maybe 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, but it's like a rubber band. It's gonna snap back. And then, you're back you find yourself back in the narcissistic family again, or they'll devalue you. They're like, "Who do you think you are? You can't survive without me. Like, I raised you. You're gonna treat me like this. I gave so much to you." So if you are a huge if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, you're gonna be like, "Oh no, like the worst thing a person could do is threaten abandonment," because that is how cults work. Because abandonment, we need other people to survive, even as adults, right? We need other people. That's why being ostracized is like death. It's why we fear it so much. And so they will do that. And for the there's a huge hatred for themselves. um all this is a projection, right? All this is to protect their inner core wounds. You can't see it because you're the one who's receiving it, especially if you're a child. But when they say you're disgusting, I hate you, they're talking about themselves. They can't stand themselves. A lot of people think narcissistic people are confident people. I'm like, no, this is self-loathing. They hate themselves. They are miserable inside. That's why nothing's ever good enough. That's why they're always trying to do the next big thing, the next big achievements. They are the ones who start businesses, the CEOs, they have to be the best because if they're not, then it triggers their insecurity. What narcissism is some people say is a post-traumatic state. Because